Hello, I'm Matt Donnelly, and this is your Chicago Bears at the Green Bay Packers Sunday Night Football game preview. Now, I want to say relax. Last season, the Packers, they dropped their season opener to the New Orleans Saints 38-3. Things were bleak. Problems were going on. The world was ending in Green Bay. And then what happened? They would go on to win 13 games and earn themselves a spot in the NFC title game. Now, I'm not saying that the Packers are going to end up in the NFC title game, but hey, relax. Now, the Bears and Packers rivalry is as old as the NFL itself, as the Packers hold the all-time advantage with a 102, 94-6 record against their NFC North rivals. Now, the Packers, they have won the last 6 contests and 11 of the last 12. So the Bears, they're going to be chomping at the bit to get themselves in the win column against the Packers. Now, probably a very good reason why that the Packers are opening as a 10-point favorite is that last few 12-game kind of stretch there. Now, let's talk about these quarterbacks because we've got Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be looking to avoid Robert Quinn in Mr. Rodgers' neighborhood, especially after being sacked by the Vikings 4 times last week. They started off bad and they only got worse. It all started with the Packers missing 2 of their starters on that offensive line, and then Christian Watson dropping a sure touchdown on that deep pass early on in that contest. Does Rodgers miss Davante Adams? Yes. Look at the stat line. The numbers speak for themselves here. A 67.7 passer rating to go along with 195 yards and a 5.7 yards per attempt average, along with an interception and a touchdown. Now, Chicago, they may have been just what the doctor ordered for Rodgers after last week. In his 2 head-to-head matchups with the Bears last season, Rodgers' yards per attempt was 8.9 while completing just under 77% of his passes to go along with a 6 touchdown to 0 interception ratio. Chicago's secondary, they probably benefited from some poor weather last week and a quarterback in Trey Lance who was making literally his 3rd career start. And basically, he doesn't have any reps in the NFL, so it's really hard to gauge where Trey Lance truly is. Now, Chicago, to their credit, they held Lance to a 50.4 passer rating in the rain. Now, for Justin Fields and the Bears, they ran into that ugly weather that I just talked about there in week number 1. So it's difficult to gauge where Justin Fields is in his second year as far as his development is concerned. In the rain and the muck, Fields tossed 2 touchdowns and threw for 121 yards in that week 1 victory against Trey Lance and the San Francisco 49ers. Bears this week, they have to get Justin Fields on the move early. Look, get some design plays there. Get the quarterback on some bootlegs. Get him out of the pocket. Do what you got to do. Sprint outs, you name it, they got to do it to avoid this Packers pass rush, which was credited with 8 quarterback hits to go along with a sack on 32 rushes. Now, Fields, he was sacked 32 times last season and twice again on Sunday on 17 dropbacks. The Bears, they were able to find some success on the ground the last time that these 2 teams met, averaging 5.9 yards per carry on 21 runs. A lot of that success was due in part to these designed runs for Justin Fields, who had 74 yards rushing himself that day. Now, running back positions here, let's go through this, starting with Aaron Jones and the Packers here. Jones was second on the team in routes there with 28 of them, but he only got 5 targets in that game. What happened to all these targets that Aaron Jones was supposed to get with Davante Adams out of the lineup? They never happened. It never came true. Now, Rodgers, he threw the ball 34 times, so there was ample opportunity there. Now, Jones' biggest contribution, it came in the run game where he broke off a couple nice runs there to add to his 49 yards on just 5 carries. But again, just 5 carries. Unfortunately, as good as the Packers' run game was, they had to abandon it because the Vikings, they got up on them early. Now, how are the Packers going to run on this Bears team? Look, before Elijah Mitchell, he suffered that MCL sprain. He was tearing this defense apart. 6 carries. Mitchell had 41 yards. That's a very healthy 6.8 yards per carry. Now, A.J. Dillon, I'm not sure how long Rodgers can deal with these receivers learning on the job. But until one of them figures it out, these Packers running backs, they are going to be counted on in the pass game. Dillon, a week ago, led this Packers team in targets. Yeah, the running back led the team in targets. Not even the pass-catching running back, the bruiser of a running back, Quadzilla himself. Now, Dillon, he did contribute in the run game, too. On 10 carries, he had 45 yards and that Packer touchdown. Now, let's turn our attention to the Bears here and David Montgomery. David Montgomery received a 65.5% snap share, and he ran 14 routes to Khalil Herbert's 5. So for now, Montgomery should be viewed as the high-end RB2 each week. However, Montgomery, he needs to bounce back in a huge way, especially on the ground. He only averaged 1.5 yards per carry, and 1 year to going at 3 yards in a cloud of dust and playing in the muck in the rain, you need to do better than that, especially when you get 17 opportunities. In a game like that, you expect a greater run rate. You expect the run game to play a larger factor in the whole situation here. And for Montgomery, he just simply did not factor into that equation. The Packers' run defense surrendered 90 yards to Dalvin Cook last week, who averaged 4.5 yards per carry. Now, in the one contest that David Montgomery suited up for against the Packers last season, he touched the ball 16 times for 81 yards. While Montgomery, he struggled on the ground, Herbert did not. Herbert looked like the better of the two backs. Let's be honest. Let's call it the way it is. In the rain, he still averaged 5 yards per carry. It's, again, no excuses for what David Montgomery did. And they only gave him 9 carries. If Montgomery continues to struggle, look for Herbert to continue to get more and more carries in this run game. He was the one who scored the Bears touchdown on the ground. So Montgomery, you better shape up or ship out here pretty soon. Now let's turn our attention here to the wide receiver position, because for Packers fans, you need some good news. Allen Lazard, okay, I still don't have a clear indication of when he's going to return. Early indications say that he should be here for this contest on Sunday night. Now, for fantasy managers, should be, doesn't really do us a whole lot of favors because we need to kind of plan ahead here. So Aaron Rodgers, we know that he missed that veteran presence in this Packers receiving core that accumulated just 120 yards receiving against the Vikings. That's 20 fewer yards than Davante Adams had in his Raiders debut. Romeo Doubs, only 4 other rookie receivers had a greater targets per route run percentage than the 20 spot that Dobbs put up a week ago. He had 5 targets while commanding a 14.3 target share in his first game. For those who are keeping track, that was Kyle Phillips, Treylon Burks there, Drake London, and Garrett Wilson. Now, I'm not sure if this is a good sign or a bad sign, that Dobbs was second in receiving yards behind Dillon and the Packers. I mean, I guess it's good that he was second, but bad that it was only for 37 yards. Randall Cobb, Christian Watson, any other receiver you want to slide in there for the Packers, someone's got to step up. Now, Rodgers, he mentioned that he'd be happy with 10 Randall Cobbs in this offense. The only problem is, Randall Cobb, I wouldn't recommend having 5 Randall Cobbs play on your offensive line because that's just a recipe for disaster. This offensive line is what hurt the Packers ultimately in that passing game. I also believe I saw Randall Cobb and Sammy Watkins running routes into the same area on a couple occasions. That has to get cleaned up this week. Now, on a positive note, with those who have their hopes and dreams tied into Christian Watson, he ran 29 routes in week number 1, which was actually 4 more than Romeo Doubs done. So you've got that kind of going for you there. Now, Watson, he had his injuries. He was dealing with something coming into the game. He's been battling all week there. Week 1, there were some encouraging signs there, like that 11.7 target share while chipping in with a 27.2% of the Packers' air yards. Both Watson and Dobbs there appear to be getting open. It's just a matter of Rodgers having enough time behind this offensive line to find them. And when they do, Watson's got to catch the ball. Let's be honest. Now, the weather, it should not be a factor in Lambeau Field compared to the rain and Soldier a week ago. But look for these rookie wide receivers to try and take advantage of Jalen Johnson there and Kendall Victor. Turning our attention to the Bears wide receivers, as much as I like to make fun of the Green Bay Packers and what they're working with, the Bears, this may be the worst receiving core in the entire National Football League. Darnell Mooney, hey, I'm going to give you a pass on last week's contest. I'm going to blame the weather in week number 1. 1 catch, 3 targets, 8 yards. Those 3 targets, sadly, it accounted for a 17.6% target share. Now, I'm still a believer in Mooney, and it appears that this is just a stat sheet anomaly going forward. He had 88.2% of a route participation, which tells you more of a story that his role is going to remain the way it is. If you look at what Justin Jefferson did against his Packers secondary, you have to think that the Bears will use Mooney much the same way. Now, Jair Alexander was not the issue in that Packers game. Let's be honest. It was not his. It was the coverages that were kind of out there. Now, I always love myself that great wide receiver corner type matchup. Mooney versus Jair Alexander, if that is what we're going to get, that was going to be a good one. This is one of the top ones this week. Now, as far as the rest of these wide receivers are concerned, Dante Pettis, Byron Pringle, Equinamia St. Brown, technically Pettis there, he led the Bears in receiving last week with 51 yards. It was on 1 reception. David Montgomery, he actually led all pass catches with 3 receptions on this Bears team. It was St. Brown that actually factored in on 1 of Justin Fields' touchdown passes. He had 3 targets. He only had 1 reception and just happened to be for a touchdown. Now, Byron Pringle, he had a single reception as well there. It was good for 22 yards, so make of that what you will. So the corners in Green Bay, they're probably going to be really confused at who the number 2 option is as far as wide receivers are concerned in Chicago. Yeah, it's that bad. Now, whichever receiver is identified as the number 2 option, they are likely going to see Eric Stokes there, whom the Vikings basically took advantage of a week ago, who was credited with 4 receptions and a touchdown on just 4 targets. And finally, the tight ends, because we got to start this off because someone's going to catch passes somewhere in this game. Why not the tight ends? Robert Tunni, he ran 19 routes on 22 snaps that he was on the field for in week number 1, as he continues to be kind of eased back into the lineup, recovering from his ACL surgery a season ago. With 5 targets and playing 36% of the snaps, Tunyon, you can basically say that's being almost elite tight end type numbers. Look at the way it is. I mean, that bodes well for him later on down the season. Maybe not so much right now. Now, fun fact, Tunyon wasn't exactly lining up as a tight end in week 1. In fact, 73% of his snaps came elsewhere, which was the 4th most amongst tight ends in week number 1. Now, Cole Comet. Comet's numbers from a season ago saw him put up 612 yards receiving, averaging 10.2 yards per reception. We all thought a breakout season was certainly on the horizon. After last week, Cole Comet, he joined the all-underwhelming team along with Darnell Mooney, running 16 routes. He saw 1 target and he had no receptions. He also had less than a 70% participation on those routes. I blame the weather, so not a great start if you're one of the people like myself that believed a breakout season was on its way. Now, the Packers-Bears games, they're always bigger for whatever reason. Cole Comet being an Illinois native, he knows this more than any. I'm expecting Cole Comet to bounce back in a big way in this rivalry contest. With that all being said, if you're looking to bounce back from a poor performance in week number 1, we're ready to help you over at fantasypoints.com. Use promo code 22Vipers10. Get 10% off that subscription. We got all kinds of different packages for you to help you win and score more. See you next time.